Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And I rise today to talk about 4-year-olds and their families in the electorate of Lalor. To talk about families and the 2015 budget that builds on the unfairness of the 2014 budget. The budget that after last year's horror budget was going to be good for families, according to our Prime Minister. The same Prime Minister who promised no cuts to health, no cuts to education, no changes to pensions. Deputy Speaker, my area is home to lots of families drawn by an affordable lifestyle and a great sense of community. With 70 to 80 new babies born locally each week, we have lots of young families. There are Josephs, Josies, Josephines, Joannes, Joeys, Johannas, Joachims and Joes living throughout the electorate, lots of them 4 years of age. Deputy Speaker, our community, where families look for an affordable lifestyle, is a great place to live. But most local families are on modest incomes, trying to get ahead by buying an affordable home or paying affordable rent. Most local families work hard for their modest incomes. The best example, or the best measure, of our community being affordable and people being on modest incomes is the fact that almost 18,000 families in the electorate of Lalor receive Family Tax Benefit Part B, the means-tested family support program designed to ensure all children have the support they need. That's 18,000 families, Deputy Speaker, who will lose up to $6,000 a year from their modest incomes. I'd like to repeat that. 18,000 families. That's the highest number of any electorate in Australia. Take a minute to let that sink in. 18,000 families working hard and raising their children. There are electorates that have high numbers of family tax benefit families across Australia. Blaxland and Holt have 16,000 families. Gorton and Fowler have 15,000 families. But Lalor has almost 18,000 families. Let's assume that on the NatSet modelling, this impact is on average $4,000 per family. That's a huge $72 million less in the local economy. Again, let that sink in for a moment. $72 million less in the local economy. But of course, Deputy Speaker, across the chamber, the impact will be far less. Warringah and North Sydney have around 3,500 families. Higgins and Kooyong around 3,000 families in receipt of the FTB. No wonder those opposite thought cutting the family tax benefit could be a saving. The impact on their communities will be minimal in comparison. In a nearby suburb, in my electorate, I wanted to talk about the 4-year-olds in those families. So let's have a look at those. We'll call the first notional 4-year-old Joseph. He's a 4-year-old in a young family with a 2-year-old and another on the way. When the budget came down, Joseph's family were keen to know more about the increases to childcare benefits and how that might help the family, only to find that as this measure is not to be introduced for 2 years, young Joseph and his family won't benefit. His family will, however, like all families with school-aged children, lose the school kids bonus next July. In another family, another 4-year-old lives. Let's call him Jose. Jose is son to a newly arrived family, trying hard to resettle in Australia. They're benefiting from 15 hours of kindergarten, an absolute game changer for children where English is a second language. However, his younger sibling, aged 2, will not be so lucky, as funding for 15 hours is not guaranteed beyond 2017. His parents, like me, might ask the local council who run our kindergartens what the change will mean for them, and no doubt they will get the same frustrated response I did. We don't know. There is no certainty. It's a 2-year funding line, very difficult to plan with, and we've spent money on infrastructure to ensure space for all 4-year-olds for 15 hours. We might have to pass the cost on to families. And then across the road, let's see this time the 4-year-old we'll call Joanna. Joanna has had an unsettled start to life. Her parents had some mental health issues, moved around a lot. One parent has passed away, and the other, due to ill health, is unable to care for her full time. Joanna now lives with her grandmother, who is trying to ensure she gets on the right track. But Joanna won't get a starting school health check, nor the benefit of the child dental service, or the school kids bonus, making sure she's ready for school. It may not be, perhaps until Joanna is 8, that it might be discovered she has poor eyesight. It won't have been picked up early, as is the case now. In a nearby suburb, Deputy Speaker, another 4-year-old, let's call him Joey. Joey was born before the federal government's PPL program existed, and the private company his mother worked for didn't have one either. So when Joey was born, the family received no paid parental leave. At great cost, she took months off. This hit the family hard financially. But now they were planning for their second child. Joey's mum now works in retail, and paid parental leave is part of her EBA. She's earning around $40,000 a year. She's planning to take maternity leave at half pay. Along with the government scheme, this could give her 6 months in total with her new baby. This could have made her life much easier. Joey's parents would be unimpressed that the government is changing the rules. More unimpressed that parents like them have been demonised in the budget papers as double dippers. They just wanted the best start for their new baby. Another notional 4-year-old is Josephine, the youngest in her family. Josephine's parents are concerned about her oldest brother. He's completing Year 12, making plans for when he leaves school. A hard-working student, he's made the most of his educational opportunities. He works part-time and has seen older mates lose shifts once they turn 18. He has no illusions about work and what a tertiary education could mean for his future. In an area that has very high youth unemployment, thinking about the future is a daunting task for young people in my electorate. Say he'd like to go to university, but with the uncertainty about costs and repayments, his parents may not be keen. He could have seen the Education Minister say he would pursue the legislation that will lead to $100,000 degrees. He'd be torn about his future. Might be checking out apprenticeships, but with so many cuts to apprentices support programs and so few apprenticeships being advertised, he'll have to be lucky. If he can't find work, he faces a lower Centrelink payment for a longer period of time and must somehow be thankful he only has to wait 4 weeks before payments. At a time when he and his mates should be hitting the books and looking forward to the many and varied jobs they might undertake in the future, they're bogged down and anxious about that future. Let's say this family struggles financially. Dad has casual work. It leaves them vulnerable, working pay slip to pay slip. They've had to rely on emergency relief programs. In my electorate, last year, that was 2 vouchers for the year per family. This year, it'll be one $60 voucher. Deputy Speaker, another notional family has a 4-year-old, Joe, whose dad is a landscaper, made famous recently in the federal parliament, landscapers. He's heard the chat around the table of the so-called small business bonus and, so Dad, Joe Senior, is looking to borrow money to take advantage of the asset write-off tax concession available to small business. He might buy a new welder or compressor. What Joe Senior can't do is predict the future. By borrowing to purchase an asset, he puts his business under pressure, and the loan will still have to be paid. Might not be the wisest decision he makes. Might turn out okay. His partner is in the paid workforce, is not in the paid workforce. She does the business books and runs around after the kids. She too has heard things about the budget. She knows that her family will lose income if the FTB changes go through the Senate. So she's turned her mind to some paid work. The thing is, though, there are very few local jobs. Before the move to Wyndham, before they bought the house and had the kids, she could have had a good job, perhaps a great job in Carlton. We know lots of those. But she cannot imagine sitting in traffic for an hour and a half each way. Yes, that's what locals who travel into the city often experience. She'd have to leave young Joe in long day care and the others in after-school care. She'd be worried about not making the 6 p.m. deadline because of traffic congestion and getting charged by the minute for being late. Perhaps if Melbourne had better public transport or improved road infrastructure. But this budget has shortchanged this family there. Victoria has been dudded on infrastructure and there's no relief in sight. So this family, a small business family, could be worried that there are no plans for jobs and no plans for infrastructure to assist them in communities like mine. So Joseph's, Jose's, Josephine, Joanna, Joey, Yocham live in families that won't understand why they are so unfairly targeted by the current government. These 4-year-olds will never benefit from the proposed increases to the childcare benefits. They'll lose the school kids bonus after only one payment. They were born prior to the introduction of Labor's paid parental leave scheme. They'll not have a 4-year-old healthy kids check before starting school and won't receive any dental treatment from the Child Dental Benefit Scheme. They'll miss out on the family tax benefit once they turn 6. If they have a disability, they will not be assured they'll get the support they need at school. They started kindergarten with uncertainty around the 15 hours of universal access, and if they get sick, their families will pay more for a visit to the doctor as the Medicare rebates are frozen. All of these 4-year-olds, Deputy Speaker, are planning to start school next year. When this group were toddlers, there was a plan. Most here will remember it, the Gonski Plan for Equitable School Funding. This group of 4-year-olds was set to benefit. The schools in Lalor benefited from the Smarter Schools national partnerships, with additional money flowing for extra literacy and numeracy support, for additional resources to allow schools locally to employ more specialist teachers to support students with English as a second language, for low SES students to be supported. The school kids bonus was also helping so many families with the cost of books, excursions and school equipment. Now we find these 4-year-olds will not benefit from the full Gonski funding model, with no commitment to years 5 and 6, and with $30 billion ripped out from education funding more generally in last year's budget. For a government that says it's all about jobs and families, my local families are finding those words very hollow. Surely education is the pathway to employment, but the rhetoric on jobs is not supported by a strong commitment to education. Not in last year's budget, not in this year's budget. In fact, the terms early education has disappeared from the childcare debate. Disappeared. This government has made it clear that childcare is about babysitting and work participation, not about education and getting our kids ready for the jobs of the future, not about making sure all 4-year-olds are ready for school. And the need to ensure a healthy workforce is not supported by the many cuts to health programs, particularly preventative health programs. This budget sees another $2 billion on top of last year's $50 billion gone from the health. Last year from our hospitals, this year from preventative health programs again. This budget still supports the introduction of $100,000 degrees for students, and many in my community will suffer from that. Deputy Speaker, this budget outlines no support for Toyota and Ford workers and GMH workers losing their jobs in my electorate. No support for the growing young unemployed, other than to limit their access to youth allowance and cuts to support programs. This budget has no support for local jobs in my area. And the state we live in has been dudded in the infrastructure spend. And Deputy Speaker, remember the 18,000 families about to lose their FTB, ripping millions from the local economy, putting pressure on our small businesses, potentially leading to more job losses. This government says its budget's about families and jobs. Hollow, hollow words. The priority of this budget is not the families of Australia. It is the job of our Prime Minister. I implore this government to find a fairer way. I ask the Treasurer to think about our namesakes, the 4-year-old Joes in Lalor, and to have a go at giving them a go.